Hi guys, Anne Marie here, and today I am sharing 3 different embellishment tutorials. These are to make embellishments for your cards, for your junk journal, for your scrapbook pages, for what have you. I will also be sharing finished cards using each of these embellishments. I'm also participating in the Giving Gratitude Hop. This hop is put on by a bunch of YouTubers who are just grateful for their audience, which is you guys, so we wanted to give back. So I'm having a giveaway. Details will be at the end, but it includes a couple sets of the embellishments that I'm going to make in this video, and then also a gift certificate to a store of your choice. So first up, I started by making some lollipop flowers with dictionary paper. So all 3 of these embellishments are going to use materials from the junk journal base that I created in last week's video. I started by hand drawing a bunch of circles on dictionary paper and was going to cut each one out until I realized just how long that would take. I'm too impatient for that. So I folded my paper and cut out a bunch of circles, and that was a lot faster. Once I had my circles cut out, I just used direct-to-paper and some ink blending brushes to color these with picked raspberry and spun sugar distress inks. I let those dry overnight, and so then the next day I ran them through my Xyron, and then I just stacked up the circles. I tried to kind of alternate light to dark, but I didn't always do that. I just played around and did whatever looks good. You can tell, like on that one, I didn't stick it all the way down because I wasn't sure that that's what I was going to end with. And then when I was positive that's how it was going to look, I went ahead and rubbed down the edges. So I did some more direct-to-paper and ink blending with Twisted Citron and I believe crushed olive, just to get a couple different shades of green going. And then I hand cut a bunch of leaves for my flowers. I had much better results doing the inking before I cut anything out, so you might try that with the lollipop flowers. The larger pieces were not a problem. It was just the smaller pieces I got a little inky. If you don't mind getting inky, then you do you. So here are the final lollipop flowers. And here is the card that I made using a lollipop flower. I think the hand-cut nature of the lollipop flower works really well with that handwritten script font. I decided to top it with a yellow button. That yellow center, I thought, oh, that was perfect. I just thought it was perfect. I loved how it popped. Next up is the full text print from a New Yorker magazine, and I used a numbers Sizzix die that I had and cut out 1 or 2 sets of numbers, and then I'm going to back those with die cut pinked circles in black. Magazine paper definitely tears pretty easily, so I would recommend, if you're doing this yourself, I would recommend backing it with some cardstock before you do the die cutting, because then it's just easier to handle. I lost probably half of these because I tore the number somehow. So I wanted to add some buttons to these, but I didn't feel like they were quite big enough yet. I played with the idea of some fabric circles, but ultimately I just punched out a bunch. There's the punch there. I just punched out a bunch of circles from craft cardstock, and I used those to back, and it was perfect. They were just a little bigger. It made everything feel nice and sturdy, and it gave me a little canvas to start building my buttons off of. I also added some folded ribbon behind the circles. That also gave me a little extra extension of the canvas to hot glue the buttons down on. Before I hot glued the buttons on, however, I did thread crochet and thread through them, tied little knots. Sometimes I wanted the knots to show, sometimes I didn't. So I just played around with my placement on that as I went. I clumped the buttons and the ribbon together on one portion of the circle to just kind of dress these up a little bit. I just used my glue stick to adhere some sewing pattern paper across the entire background, and then use that top note die from Stampin' Up! With some black cardstock. And I made this one for the Big 4-0. Okay, for our last embellishment tutorial today, I'm going to make these pretty little layered butterflies. I used like my last one of my stash of these in the 11 tips for mini collage video a couple weeks ago, so it was time to make a new little stash anyway. But I'm just taking my Martha Stewart butterfly punch and punching as many butterflies as I can get from the page of a vintage hymnal. And then I'm also going to punch out some from sewing pattern paper. Sewing pattern paper does not punch on its own. So what I had to do was take a piece of cardstock and lay the sewing pattern paper on top of it. I didn't glue it because I still wanted that fluffy, floaty see-throughness of the sewing pattern paper. So I didn't glue it to the cardstock. I simply placed a layer of sewing paper and a layer of cardstock into the punch, because those blades are primarily, they're on the bottom and they're punching up through that shape that you see on top. So the blades were able to cut through the cardstock cleanly, and for whatever magic reason that enabled them to also cut through the sewing paper cleanly. So I used mini glue dots just right in the center of each butterfly and lined up the sewing pattern and the music paper butterflies on that little mini glue dot. We're going to cover that with more of that vintage crochet thread that I showed you, or that I used on the buttons on the last embellishment tutorial. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick the end of the thread into a mini glue dot on the back of the butterfly, and then I'm just going to wrap it around the center a few times, and then I'm going to stick the other end into the mini glue dot. So I would stick and kind of press some of the thread into the glue dot, and then I would just snip it right there in the middle so that there's no stray ends sticking out. And just repeated that for all these butterflies, and they're so cute. So here are the finished embellishments and the finished card. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Those are all the embellishments that I'll be making and sharing today. To enter the giveaway, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment below. I'll be announcing the winners on October 10th. The prizes again are, there's a set of the embellishments that you saw me make today, and then there's also a $10 gift certificate to any online store of your choice. So again, I'll be announcing those winners October 10th. It'll be a random drawing from all the people that have done those things. And yeah, I'm excited. This is my first giveaway, so yay. Again, thanks so much for watching. Please go on to see the next creator's video. You can see that in the playlist, which I've linked below and again right here. And I hope you have a happy, scrappy week. Bye.